Please join me in welcoming John Reimer. John is CFM with FM360consulting.com, and he'll be speaking on building technology has advanced. It's time we catch up. Welcome, John.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it. There are some open chairs up front if y'all want to come have a seat, or you're, of course, welcome to stand. Just wanted to give you that option there. So welcome. Thank you, everybody, for coming down to Baltimore. So how many of you are from this neck of the woods? Okay, so a lot of folks came in. That's awesome. And I don't know if you guys heard that, but like Tim was saying, free food, free alcohol. I mean, I think that got everybody's ears perked up there. All right. So let's start walking through our presentation because I do have a lot to cover in our time frame, and I want to make sure hopefully we have some opportunity to have some question and answer session at the end. He already did my intro. I'm going to just go right by that. So our agenda, real quickly, let you know what we're going to cover is we're going to talk about how technology has kind of left us in the dust as facility folks, and let's talk about what we can do to try to bridge that gap. I'm going to define some of the technologies. Hopefully most of you are familiar with them, but we're going to hit on some of the value that they can provide to you and how we might be able to leverage these. And then one of the things that I want to we'll spend probably not quite half, but steps to selecting and implementing technology as well, because that's something that's is a question that comes up a lot. It's actually a lot of what my company ends up doing, because most folks just don't know about this technology thing and how do we go about tackling it. And then I'll give you some tips and also some resources that you guys can reference. So, as Tim said, they'll have the presentation. I've got this presentation posted on there. Some of these other resources I'll reference are going to be on this web address I give you. So don't feel like you have to scramble and write everything down. You will have access to a lot of this information. With that said, I'm going to start dating myself. How many of you are still using paper work orders? Just out of curiosity. Okay, most of you are like sitting on their hands in denial, pleading the fifth. Okay, that's okay. It's okay. I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I actually cut my teeth on Maximo. Anybody using what was Maximo? Right? You look so sad. I mean, Maximo. It was a great software system. As an intern, so with Intel over 20 years ago, my job was to read the pass-down logs. So, Intel 24/7 operations, you have these pass-down logs that the engineers write down everything that they do. Hey, this broke, we put this in hand, da-da-da-da. Thousands of pages of chicken scratch. It was a fun summer internship. But I learned a lot, and that was my entry into working with CMMS, because I had to go through and capture anything that looked like it was broken, go and enter that as a work order into Maximo posthumously, if you will. But then we progressed from trying to use Palm Pilots. I'm dating myself a little bit there. You guys remember Palm Pilots? Right? When I was at Microsoft, we were kind of on that bleeding edge of trying to get Palm Pilots and barcode readers that we plugged into the SD card slot and trying to get that to work out there in the field. And it was good, but it was a lot of pain and suffering to get us to that point. And then these days, I look at what we can do on our smartphones. And I mean, I'm like, I would have loved to have that type of technology, even half of that technology, 15 years ago. And yet, we don't really use it within our facilities. That's the disappointing part. CMMS, so I'm going to pick on that and we'll talk about CMMS, IDMS, CAFM. But, way back when, there's like 2 and a couple of pretenders in there that had, their CMMS. Now, thousands. I don't know. There's so many CMMS, IDMS, CAFM out there on the marketplace that you've got a lot of good choices. So again, the technology continues to advance, but when I go and ask around, and we'll do some of these survey questions here of how many of you have CMMS, et cetera, we won't see everybody's hand up, okay? And that is a problem. Predictive maintenance. Anybody doing predictive maintenance? Vibration analysis, infrared thermography, okay? Well, I don't spend a whole lot of time on that, but maybe we'll try to squeeze some of that in because that is very valuable technology that we can leverage. I'm actually going to talk more about condition-based maintenance, where we can leverage our building control system, and also should be taking advantage of our predictive technologies. But old school days was using the screwdriver up to the bearing housing. If you guys still do that, just don't get the screwdriver that's flipped around. Okay, just saying. where now you've got basically vibration monitors or analyzers that are this size that you could use out there in the field. And they're relatively inexpensive, right? That's where technologies come. Screwdriver to this. And then smart building, I kind of laugh at smart building because I'm still waiting to see one. We've talked about it for over a decade, and we have, again, a lot of technology. We just have not really integrated it yet, to my opinion, truly become a smart building. But state of the state, we are, as this technology has advanced, I look at how much has happened in 2 decades, right? And what is available to us at our fingertips. And then when I go and look at facility organizations, a lot of them are still operating the same old way as they were 10, 20, 30 years ago, right? Maybe they're using Excel instead of paper now, or they just print out the emails because that's how they get their work orders. But I would say in my surveys, and we'll do one in here, what I have seen is that more than half of our facility organizations are still more than 50% reactive in their maintenance. That's a problem. And that's a whole nother presentation where we talk about the cost and the impact of that, but we'll have to get to that later. We have equipment that's at or beyond end of life. How many of you can relate to that, where you've got a number of your assets that are at or beyond end of life, right? I mean, that's an ongoing issue that we have had for decades. We can leverage some technology to help us start digging ourselves out. That's also another presentation. The other thing, too, is that we're not able, because we're reactive firefighting, we're not able to complete our PMs, right? We go with more of that round-to-it philosophy, right? What's the easiest maintenance you can do on HVAC? Change the filters. And yet, all too often, most folks use the round-to-it philosophy, right? Oh, we change filters when we get around to it. That's a problem, okay? And then lastly, insufficient resources. So how many of you are starting to find it harder and harder to hire good, skilled labor to replace all those that are retiring? And when I ask this question again next year, I'm going to see more hands up and more hands up, because this has been a growing epidemic, if you will, and it's only going to get worse. We're actually going to tackle how do we try to bridge that gap in the Knowledge Cafe at 12:30 today. So come with me and let's talk about that there. So, all right, so now we get to, Tim made you all stand up. I'm not going to make you do that. I'm just going to have you raise your hands with a couple of these questions here. So, PM to CM ratio. This is probably one of your primary KPIs that you should be tracking, because this lets me know kind of how healthy you are, and it also lets me know how much information are you capturing, okay? So PM to CM ratio is basically your preventive, predictive maintenance, so your scheduled maintenance, number of those work orders versus the number of corrective work orders, okay? So those things you didn't plan to break. And I've had some folks, well, we schedule when we're going to fix it. Does that count as scheduled? No. Did you schedule for it to break? Okay, so that's going to be unscheduled. That's on the CM side. Don't you pad your numbers. So how many of you, there it is. How many of you would say that you are in that 80% scheduled, 20% reactive? Okay, I have a handful, and then I had more people laughing than the handful that raised their hands. So ideally, and I'm actually being generous, just so you know. Ideally, I say 80-20. There are some that say 85-15. If you're in a critical environment, data centers, some manufacturing settings, healthcare, et cetera, yeah, you should be like 90-10. Okay? So let's see if the hands go up more. How many of you would say that you're 50-50? 50% scheduled, 50% reactive? Yeah, there's like maybe 10 hands, 15 hands, okay? Greater than 50% reactive? Okay, okay, how about this one? I have no idea. Or you're in denial. That's the other part, right? You're in denial. I don't want to know. Please don't ask. I'm taking the fifth on this one as well. All right. So what can we do to help this out? Absolutely, we need to leverage technology. And we're going to get into some of these specifically, because what we're trying to do is move from that reactive firefighting that is so costly. Right? One of my Johnisms, is it cheaper to change the oil in your car or to not to? Right? We all get that. And yet, how do we tend to operate our buildings? Well, we change the filters when we get around to it, okay? So it's very, very costly for us to do reactive maintenance. So we need to migrate not just towards that scheduled preventive maintenance. I actually want to push you more into leveraging some of the predictive technologies, right? Predictive maintenance, PDM, and then ultimately going towards that CBM, condition-based maintenance. And again, at 12:30 today, we're going to talk about that because I actually think the skilled labor shortage is going to force us to have to take advantage of technology to help us bridge that gap, okay? So whether you want to or not, we're going to have to migrate that direction, which to me, some see it as a problem, I see it as an opportunity because it's things we should have been doing anyway. Now I might be able to justify doing it because I can't find enough wrench turners to come in and do the job. Increase staff efficiency. So again, talking about being reactive. It's tough if you don't have a CMMS or our maintenance management system to be able to monitor, but even something as looking at financial records. You can discern a lot. For example, I looked at a school district's financial records years ago because I was trying to convince them that they needed to get a maintenance management system. And what I realized is that a team of 4, and that's counting the chief engineer, team of 4 on any given school day, they were going to the supply shop at least 3 times on average. And do you think they went by themselves? No. I'm going to go with Joe, and we're going to go over to that supply shop because it's Free Taco Tuesday, right? And then on Friday, it's Free Ice Cream Friday over here. So I know how it rolls. But that's very inefficient because you can't plan your day. You're basically responding to that biggest fire. And when you sit and look at it, again, whether it's pencil on paper or looking at where you're spending your time, ideally through work orders, you see how much is wasted. And if you just start making some little changes, it helps you to progress towards that preventive condition-based maintenance. Plan for replacement. So those of you that raise your hand and say, hey, I've got a lot of equipment or systems that's at or beyond end of life. Are you planning for that replacement? Right? Do you have a capital replacement plan put together? Are you maintaining that in whether it's a capital replacement software, or you could even manage that inside of a CMMS? You only need about 3 fields. Okay? We have to do this type of planning, or we're never going to get ourselves out of that deferred maintenance hole. Because with that, if I can accumulate this data, this information, and again, hopefully it's just a relatively easy report to generate out of my system, out of technology, I can tell those that control the purse strings the cost of them saying no. We have not been able to do that at all, right? They tell us, oh, well, it's same budget as last year, plus or minus, depending on if it's a good year or a bad year, right? And that's what you get for whether it's capital reinvestment or operations. You have not been able to tabulate your operating expenses, your capital forecast. You're not tracking that, so you cannot present anything, and you have nothing to stand on. Okay, you go with the Oliver Twist approach, right? No, I have more, please. And that's what you go with. And it's like, that don't fly. You've got to have substantiation. Technology can help you do that. Again, that's another presentation in itself. Having data available at your fingertips. Now, I'm not suggesting maybe looking at building drawings on something this small, but you could. It's not very easy. But there's a lot of great information that you could store on whether it's your maintenance management system, some other cloud somewhere that you can get to on your device that your engineers can use in the field. Right? Especially if we want to go like uber geek on us. Right? This to me is where we start getting really smart. We start incorporating GIS, and we're able to walk down the hallway and within reasonable proximity know, okay, that shut-off valve or that VAV box is right up there. Right? Without us having to come up with our color-coded stickers. Right? Red, see, that's going to be a fire sprinkler system up there. Blue, that's probably the VAV system, right? You guys use the little stickers that you put on your ceiling grids. I've seen them. Okay. And then, again, just having the knowledge documented. That's another thing we'll talk about this afternoon, too, is are we taking all that intellectual capital that is retiring and going off fishing? Are we actually documenting that, being able to pass it on down? because since we haven't kept that information inside a maintenance management system and we don't necessarily have great drawings or documentation, that information is leaving. And that's a problem. Okay, so we need to try to extract that in a nice, loving way. Okay, we're not going to plug it in the back of their head and suck it out like the Matrix or something. All right, so let's start talking about some of these specific technologies. I kind of do refer to these acronyms a little bit as alphabet soup, because I have folks go, well, do I want a CMMS? Do I want an IDMS? CAFM? We'll talk about that, but to me, they're all just acronyms. Okay, you got BMS versus BAS versus DDC. We'll talk about those too. So I want to kind of break up this confusion a little bit. So first one, and I'll tell you, I'm going to be more partial to CMMS because I have been doing this forever, and that's what I started on. Okay, and we'll talk about the differences between CMMS, IDMS, CAFM. My opinion really mostly comes down to who's selling the technology to you. That's really what it comes down to, but that's my opinion, because the systems these days are all very, very functional, and there's so many similarities. With this CMMS, the foundational elements are going to be, of course, your day-to-day operations and maintenance, right? Getting your service requests coming in. Hopefully that's through a web front end versus getting emails or, still we get phone calls, right? We're going to have that. Ideally, I'm trying to get away from the hey, you work orders, right? As you're walking down the hall, somebody's tugging on your shirt sleeve, saying, hey, while you're here, can you do this or that? Okay. Now, with implementation, there are things that, tips that you can do to shift the culture towards, that way. What I don't want to hear is an engineer telling them, well, yeah, but you got to put a work order in for that. That's not how we encourage our customers to start using that new system. They're going to go, jerk, I'm going to go break something else now. Okay. We want to encourage them in a nice way to say, sure, you know what, I can call that into the service desk for you, or you know what, we can swing by and help you out later, show you how to put in a service request. You can do that online. And how many of you incorporate into your NEO, your new employee orientation, the onboarding process for all of your organization's employees? How many of them, or how many of you have incorporated facilities into that onboarding process where they know what facilities does, how to get a hold of you, where to put in that service request? And you guys doing that yet? Okay, some of you. Why not? I mean, it's one thing you have to go and teach everybody that you already have, but let's start teaching the ones that are coming in too, of what we do, how to get a hold of us, etc. Parts and inventory, yeah, absolutely. CMMS, that's a pretty common core functionality, is to have parts inventory available. Some of you even have where you can do purchase orders. Of course, on the parts and inventory, you've got where you have your min-maxes. And especially, again, with this level of automation that we have, if I go and use a part, right, I scan it out, use this part associated with my work order, and I now hit that, fall below that minimum, well, it can automatically notify my supplier, and my supplier can come and restock. I didn't have to do diddly squat. Kind of nice, okay? That's us using technology, because we are so inefficient in so many things. The technology is there waiting for us. Just say, hey, automate this for me, please. Failure analysis. Now, this is where my inner data geek really comes out, okay? On the failure analysis, this is on the back side of it. When it comes to capturing your work orders, how many of you would say that you do a pretty good job of putting your service requests inside a maintenance management system, of tracking those? Okay. Your PMs? Okay. How about your corrective work orders? Do you feel like you're getting like all or most of your corrective work orders in the system? Okay. Because there's really only a handful of hands that went up with that one. If I'm operating more than 50% reactive, that means I don't know where more than 50% of my resources are being spent. So then when I go back to management to say I need more resources, they go, well, where are you spending those resources that you have now? Fixing stuff. I cannot give them any hard information. Okay, so we need to be able to capture our corrective maintenance work orders, everything. I'm one that says you should ideally have 100% of your staff's time against work orders. Okay, not to be big brother, but it's to justify the resources. Because when they go to cut budgets, whose door do they knock on first? Yours. Okay, that's that target on your back. Welcome to facilities. I need to be able to justify resources. Failure analysis is the other reason. Most of your CMMSs have a failure code, basically problem, cause, remedy that's in there. If I can start looking at that failure code analysis, especially for some of you that manage a large portfolio, now I just can aggregate all of that data together and I can go, why are we replacing bearings so often? Why are we having so many belt replacements? Right? Well, it's because we do the shoestring method of alignment when we go and align that pump and motor, right? Or when we go and change out that belt, we don't use laser alignment to make sure everything's nice and straight. They call it predictive maintenance, but I mean, it was a cool technology tool. So they're like, hey, let's throw it underneath predictive maintenance. Laser alignment's not technically not that, but doing things like that, like again, example, when I was at Intel, after an internship worked for them full time, this is part of what I started doing was data dogging. And we found from just doing some analysis, right, and it was really simple once I started using the failure codes, it's like, we're having all these pump problems. Why? Dig into those work orders. It's all with the same manufacturer. Guess what? Not using them anymore. Okay? So we wouldn't have known that because it's such a large organization, so many hands touching it, we would not have known that had we not done just that quick, simple analysis. Okay? Use the technology. And then, of course, the asset history cost. I mean, that's basic in there. That also is where all too often I see facility organizations using IT's service request software. Okay? IT doesn't maintain anything, right? They don't do scheduled preventive maintenance on things necessarily. And they do not worry about tracking asset history and cost because servers, whatnot, that's consumables for them. That's pizza boxes, as they call them. It's consumables. So their system will not work for you. And then, of course, resource management. Especially the larger the organization, the more having a resource management where you have like whether it's a calendar view, where I know, hey, John's going that direction. We just got this work order in. Let's make sure that gets assigned to John. Okay, he's already there. Simple little things that we can do to streamline how we use our resources. And again, our hand is going to be forced to go that direction as our labor pool gets shallower and shallower. Now, CAFM, Computer-Aided Facility Management. And I'll say this, not all systems are created equal, okay? And regardless of which four-letter acronym it flies under, not all are created equal, okay? And we'll talk about when we get to selection and implementation here shortly of how you try to discern what works best for you. CAFMs, they do asset management. One of the things that CAFMs is usually stronger in and maybe has those additional modules versus like what is a typical CMMS would be space planning and move management. Okay? Now, I will tell you though, in a lot of cases, those CAFMs, they'll be really strong in space management and move management, but they'll be weaker on, to me, what I would be looking for on the operations side, on the facilities maintenance side. Because most of your CAFMs came from architects needing a tool, and it progressed over into the O&M world. Okay, just like CMMS usually is more from the facilities folks, so we don't really tie in the architectural as well. That's where we all got to start getting along, and we're getting there, but just things to look for. IDMS, Integrated Work Management System. Again, if I'm going to try to throw these into a bucket, these will tend to incorporate more of real estate management, right? Your leases, property management, of course, space planning, move management associated in there. Again, will likely be weak or could be weak on the facilities maintenance side of it. You just got to figure out what your priorities are. And we'll talk about this a little bit later, my recommendation is don't say, yeah, I want an IDMS or I want a CAFM or I want a CMMS. Just say, you need a maintenance management system. Then we'll go figure out what you need it to do. Then go shopping, okay? So we'll talk about that here in a second. Then you got the big dogs, the ERPs, right? And they fly underneath a couple other TLAs, three-letter acronyms. These tend to incorporate more of it's for your overall organization, right? Where it's got HR, it's got accounting, it's got purchasing, and they have a maintenance module. Some of them are better than others. Some of them you're like, yeah, it's not really a maintenance module, just saying. But you have some of these bigger systems. These are typically going to be driven by the organization at a high level, typically multi-million-dollar implementation, and you need a team of people to keep maintaining and administering it. And unfortunately, it's usually, hey, the organization's getting this really awesome ERP and it can do all this whiz-bang stuff and it's really, really cool. And facilities, yeah, we'll get to you last, assuming we have money left. And that's in about 5 years. Does that sound familiar? Yeah. So they're like, okay, well, we can wait 5 more years to get, maintenance management system. No, you can't. So just go get your own. We can get something really inexpensive that will do the job for you. And then if we want, we'll make sure that we find a system that will play nice with that ERP system so you can at least exchange information so you make those people happy, okay? And you still get what you want. All right, so let's ask this question. With respect to a CMMS, IDMS, CAFM, and I'm just going to say CMMS just to keep it short, just know I'm talking about all 4-letter acronyms there. How many of you have one and you feel that it's being fully utilized? Okay, 10-ish, okay. How many of you, you have a system, you like it, and you're making progress? Good, 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 I like that. How many of you have one and you're like, oh, hate it? There's like, okay. And how many of you need one? Okay. How many of you, let me see this, how many of you don't have one? Okay, so hopefully you're the same people that raised your hand that said you need one. Okay. Otherwise I'm going to start over from the beginning. I will tell you this, if you do not have a maintenance management system, I guarantee you're a reactive organization. And if you don't think that you are, you're in denial. I guarantee you cannot have a successful facility management program unless you have a maintenance management system. Not going to happen. Well, we got Excel, we got email. No, not going to happen. Okay? So that is my strong encouragement there. All right, let's talk about a different piece of technology. Building management systems. Now, I like this one. This actually kind of depends on where you live in the U.S. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina now. I used to live out west, Idaho, Washington, Arizona, and it's funny. You hear BMS, Building Management System, right? You hear BAS, Building Automation System. When I moved to Idaho, I started hearing DDC all the time, and I'm like, what? Oh, you mean your BMS, right? But that's, again, direct digital control. And then you have those that's our EMS, our Energy Management System. It does a lot more than manage energy. It affects energy management, but it does a heck of a lot more. So again, I'm going to be partial, and I'm going to go probably with BMS because that's what I'm used to calling it. But just know that I'm kind of talking a lot about the same thing here. Now, the value of a BMS is that it is the nervous system of your facility, right? If we can get everything to play nice with each other. Creature comfort. This to me is where your BMS has direct impact, and that means us as facilities have a direct impact on the creature comfort of our customers, of our occupants. And if any of y'all have ever seen me present before, been in any of my classes, and even probably read some of my articles, you'll see that rule of 110 and 1. I know Randy's heard it too many times. But the rule of 110 and 1, it's the $100, $10, $1. Okay? $100 is productivity. The impact that we have on productivity. The $10 is operational costs, right? Facilities operations and maintenance costs, second largest asset and expense for most organizations. And then the $1 is typically energy, okay, the energy cost. So if I'm going to try to justify improvements that I need to make to my organization, like getting an upgraded BMS, I'm going to talk about the 110 and 1. If I can get better control of my building space and make people more comfortable, I'm making you $100, okay? I'm also going to be saving $1 on the energy side, and if we push it towards this condition-based maintenance that I want us to do, we'll be reducing our operations costs too. All because we just got a better system in there and we're actually using it. So condition-based maintenance. So let's talk about maintenance strategies real quickly here. You've got reactive maintenance. Okay? Let me ask this question. Is reactive maintenance a legitimate maintenance strategy? How many say yes? How many are like, no way, dude, that's not, no, reactive's bad. And everybody else, again, we're going to be Switzerland. Okay, I'm scared. I don't know how to answer that one. It's a trick question. Reactive maintenance is a legitimate maintenance strategy. It had better not be your predominant maintenance strategy, but it is a legitimate one. Okay, if it's a low-cost item and it's a low criticality, I don't care, right? I have other things that I need to go take care of. I'm not going to worry about making sure I do the maintenance on that bathroom exhaust fan. I'll have the custodial staff clean the grill on it, but I've got bigger fish to fry, so I'm going to go focus on that. So reactive maintenance would probably be applicable to, again, low cost, low criticality. Preventive maintenance, that is schedule or runtime based maintenance. You do it whether you need it or not. It's been, you change oil in your car every 3,000 miles or 3 months. Does it need it? I don't know. The sticker says it's time. In all actuality, preventive maintenance is pretty intrusive, usually requires us to take something offline, and if we're not careful, we can actually introduce more failure modes than what was there before we even touched it. Okay? Not saying preventive maintenance is bad, I'm just saying that there is a better thing we can do, but you should at least be doing your PMs, but if we can, again, progress towards this predictive maintenance, PDM, that's where now I'm taking advantage of predictive technologies like infrared thermography. Right? You should be scanning your panels, your electrical panels and whatnot, typically at least once a year, some will say every other year, as opposed to going in and doing torquing and tightening. Okay? Torquing and tightening, what are you doing? You're fatiguing the wire and you're introducing failure modes that were not previously there. And you don't even know if you fixed the problem or if you created a problem. Enter infrared thermography, IR, okay? Vibration analysis. Typically on rotating equipment, usually larger rotating equipment or higher criticality rotating equipment, there's a lot of information I can discern from vibration analysis. 50% of the time, if it's vibrating, it's a misalignment issue. 45% of the time, it's an imbalance, which could be caused by a handful of different things. But then you have a plethora of other items that can be making up that other 5%. Okay? That's me using predictive technologies to discern what's going on with my equipment so I can try to schedule to do the right maintenance at the right time. All right? Next step forward with that is going to be condition-based maintenance, CBM. This to me is where I take the information from my predictive technologies, bring that in, and now couple it with what I'm getting from my building control system. And or maybe even getting the data where I've got my engineers out there doing rounds and readings on this. Right? You guys have them put in pressure, temperature, whatever. They can put that in here, track it, trend it. Because I can't trend paper. I can't query paper. So if I have it in here, I can now incorporate that into my condition-based maintenance. Because ultimately what we're trying to do is make sure we're monitoring the health of our systems to do the right maintenance at the right time. Nothing more, nothing less. Again, we're going to be forced this direction, and we should be there anyway. Anybody using condition-based maintenance now, or at least trying to really push that direction? Okay, a few of you. How many of you? I'm going to try to make you feel better. How many of you have Magna-Helix gauges on your air handlers, like at your filter banks, right? Pressure gauges at your filter banks, and your engineers, right, check those. And when you guys hit that delta P, right, that change in pressure drop, you go, oh, it's time to change the filters. That's condition-based maintenance. So you're already doing it, all right? So now keep going. Alarm versus optimum. Another issue with building management systems. Again, these things can do all sorts of freaky, deaky, tricky stuff if you tell your control system provider to do it, and of course pay them for it. But you also have to know what you want to tell it to do, okay? You can either use your BMS as kind of, again, to help you in your firefighting. Let me see if this sounds familiar to you. You have, maybe a couple of your technicians that are the ones that you will allow to touch the BMS. The other ones, you're like, keep them locked out. And so you have the one or two folks that show up in the morning, right, 6 in the morning, they sit down and go, okay, which fire am I fighting today? And they go through and look at the alarms, and they go, oh, there's the big one. That's the big fire. That's what they go out and tackle that day. Okay? That's unfortunately more of the norm. We use it as to identify when there's problems, not if we're operating optimally. And there's simple little things that we can do, even something as simple as on your air handler. If I have outside air coming in, right, I've got my mixed air temperature, I've got my return air temperature, and my supply air temperature. I can have my BMS compare those things and go, something don't seem right here. And it can go, you might want to look at me because either I've got a sensor that's out of whack or we've got a louver that's jammed up, something, right? As opposed to me having to sit down and go through every single air handler to try to see if I see something out of whack. I don't have time for that. So I can leverage my control system to help me do simple little things like that to let me know when we're outside of optimum. Also, again, ultimately, like we said with the delta P on the filter bank, I want to see, are there other indicators of us trending towards failure? And then get ahead of that. That's when I do my maintenance, right? Again, helps us to be more efficient with our resources. The technology is available, but there's very few of you that actually are using it for that. Okay, so how many of you are using the building management system for ongoing commissioning? That to me is where you're using it. You're using it to track for optimum performance. It lets you know when something gets out of whack. Not necessarily an alarm, but it's not operating optimally. Anybody trying to use their control system for that currently? Awesome, good, okay. Condition-based maintenance. Any of you really pushing that for CBM at this point? Okay, a couple of you. Firefighting only. Okay, some of you. And then, yeah, we don't even look at it because we got so many nuisance alarms, it just gets buried in white noise. See, we're laughing because unfortunately it's true. That's life in facilities. There is a better way. We have to definitely bridge that gap. All right, so let's talk about value of CMMS, IDMS, and CAFM again here. Now, I referred to the BMS as the nervous system of your facility program, or of your building, your facility. A CMMS is the nervous system of your facilities program, okay? Again, if you don't have one, you need one. If you don't like what you have, please make it better or find another one. You should be using this to help you drive business decisions. Like I said earlier, you are, if you're a facility manager or director, you manage the second largest asset and expense for the organization. Okay? You shouldn't be carrying tools. You should be a business manager. That's your job. And this CMMS here, that is the tool to help you do your job. We'd already talked about increased staff efficiency, improve satisfaction. How many of you, your organizations probably do surveys of the occupants of the customers. Are there facility-related questions tied into those surveys that you guys get the information back on? Okay. Now, if you could start making improvements to the facility and showing that result on the satisfaction scores, well, that speaks to management, because our goal as facilities is to keep them happy, healthy, productive. That's our job. Happy, healthy, productive, okay? And there's studies out there that show even something as simple as paint color. That's why I'm an engineer by training, but I joke I'm a reformed engineer because I'm trying to get along with my architect friends, right? Because we're trying to do the same thing. We're trying to, again, keep people happy, healthy, productive. And that's what being able to track and trend that information so that I can justify the improvements that I'm making in my facilities program. Also, you should be able to develop your budgets. And it's not the, pull out last year's spreadsheet, let's look at where we spent our money, let's look what was on our wish list last year and update it. It's no, you should be able to show where am I spending my resources. I know what my contract amounts are. I've got my capital forecast in the system as well, so I can spit out those reports, do a little bit of massaging, we always have to, and then send that off to management. It should be that easy if we're utilizing these systems like they're supposed to be used. And then lastly, to market the facility management program. Again, another presentation, a couple presentations that I do is talking about selling. We in facilities, we're always selling. It's just, are we doing a good job or bad job? Usually it's a bad job. But if I can take the data out of my CMMS and just, again, passively, I'm putting that on our website showing customer satisfaction. Probably not our PM to CM ratio because, our customers aren't going to get that. But find some of those KPIs that reflect back to them. Maybe our response time, right? Your survey scores specifically for facilities. Put that out there on your facility's webpage, and that's the same page they go to put in a service request. That's the same page the page they go to see what's the specials in the cafeteria today. Okay, so again, we should be using this tool in all those different ways. So real quickly, this will get us into our selection and implementation side. So how many of you are in the process of implementing a new system now? Just out of curiosity. Okay, few of you. Okay. How many of you are in the process of soliciting proposals and whatnot? A couple of you, okay. How many of you are currently shopping? That's why you're here today or this week. Okay. And then how many of you need to start? It's on the to-do list, John, with everything else. How many of you need help justifying a CMMS? Right? I mean, they are relatively inexpensive, but there absolutely will be an upfront cost in the procurement and more so actually in the implementation. But I can show you, and this is what I get from the CMMS companies, what studies have they done that show increased staff efficiency. If I can increase your staff efficiency by just 10%, we got an ROI that pays back within the year. Easy, 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 easy.
Is there anybody here that doesn't need help justifying that?
Yeah. The question was, is there anybody here that doesn't need help justifying getting CMMS or even making other investments in your facilities program? So that's a good part of, if you want resources on selling and marketing what we do, if you go to my website, /selling, there's articles and presentations there, maybe one that I did at NFMT last year. So let's talk about how to select technology, because again, that's what I wanted to make sure we get through in the time that we have. Common reasons, though, for failed CMMS. I just wanted to throw this up there real quick. They're actually, that title of the slide is a title of an article that I wrote. CMMS is not a 4-letter word, okay? So definitely take a look at that if you're in that shopping or need to go start looking or even implementing phase. Take a look at that because hopefully you're not going down one of these paths, okay? So first thing, before you ever go shopping, so this would be my word of caution to you that are going to be shopping out there in the expo these next few days. Don't get wooed in by the shiny object, okay? What you want to do is identify who your stakeholders are. And again, it's not just facility folks. Who do you interact with on a routine basis? Who requires data of you, right? Is it AP, right? Accounts payable? Is it HR? Do they want you to do time tracking through your system? Is management, what reports do they want? Is there some sort of regulatory requirements where you have reports that they have to get? Identify who those players are, who those stakeholders are. That way you can see, okay, what information do I need to make sure I capture, and then how am I going to share that information? Define your processes. This is usually a whiteboard session. Now, the saying is that a good system is not going to fix your bad processes. So when we're whiteboarding the processes, your workflows, that's one thing we'll be looking for is, okay, we can automate this, we can, and I'm the why guy, okay? I'm the why guy. I will ask, well, why do you do it this way? Well, why that way? And if I get thwatty, well, that's how we've always done it. Wrong answer, okay? We need to be able to justify what we're doing. So whiteboard your processes, look to optimize, and then we'll be thinking about how we can automate those in a CMMS. Now, this selection process is very much geared towards a CMMS, but you can apply this to any technology. So I just kind of want to make sure you guys understand that. Identify potential integrations. Like I gave that example earlier, your organization is doing that big ERP, you want to get your own little CMMS, just know that you got to get something that's going to play nice with the ERP, and does it have an API so you can share data back and forth? How are we going to push and pull data? That's where you might have to talk to your IT people. Be nice, okay? It's where you might have to talk to your IT people to be able to do that. And then, of course, we talked about the reporting. Once you've done that needs analysis, you need to put together your system requirements. This is what this is your attachment A that goes out with that RFP. This is what I need this system to do. Okay, and this is where I should be driving, right? You as the customer, you should be driving what you want, not the sales guy telling you what you want. That's why I tell you to be careful shopping. Once you do that with the system requirements, and you got I always get the question, on-site or cloud. Everybody's cloud-based these days, or going cloud-based. Unless your organization has a good data security reason for doing it in-house, I would strongly encourage you to go cloud, okay? And we can talk about that later. Next step I would do is then take your system requirements, put that into a functionality matrix. The need-to-haves, the nice-to-haves. And I send this off with the RFP that the providers have to fill out that functionality matrix and say, can they perform that task completely? Well, they can do it with a workaround, or they can't do it at all. Okay? And they choose that in that matrix, and when that comes back, it makes it a lot easier for me to quantify, to do that quantitative analysis as to which systems bubble up to the top, because they meet my requirements. Right? You might be surprised as to which ones do that. And then my little tip in here is put in a price lock. And I have not had this problem working with any of my customers and their providers that they selected, is put in a price lock. Hey, we want you to lock in this licensing price for 3 years, and then after that you can only increase price in accordance with the inflation, right? The cost of living index. Okay, that's it. That way it keeps you in that 3 to 5% increase range each year. Not hey, it's going up 25% now that you've been working with us for 5 years and you're stuck. We do not want that. Okay. Identify potential solutions. So as part of this, as you put your RFP together, that's where you can start shopping. Okay, in the sense of what you're looking for. Now you go out hunting for it. And once you identify some of those potential candidates, those are the ones you invite to the dance, right? One of the things I look for is, I mentioned earlier, ignore the acronyms. IDMS, CAFM, CMMS, doesn't matter. Go with the ones that are going to fit your business requirements, your needs. Stability and reputation. How long have they been around? Is this some new add-on feature they started? Is it maybe, I've seen some where I kind of go, is this running out of some guy's garage? I've just seen some systems like that are very questionable. But again, this is a business tool that you're going to invest in, and you're going to be using it for years. So you want to make sure it's going to be around for years. The other thing you want to look for is its growth and reinvestment. Is it going to continue to, do they keep improving themselves, adding functionality? How often do updates come out? That's the type of questions you want to ask. What is their renewal rate? So customer satisfaction. So what's their retention? So because again, especially if they're cloud-based, or typically an annual license. Are you guys at 99%? What are you at? 95%, 98%? That's something I want to make sure, and I will put 95% as a minimum requirement, but ideally I'm pushing for 98, 99%. Okay. On the flexibility, that's where that growth, reinvestment, all that stuff ties into each other. I want to pick a system that I might not use all its functionality now, because I'm going to have to do this phased implementation that will potentially take a couple of years, depending on how big my organization is. But I want to make sure that they will continue to change and grow with me as I mature my facility management program. That's really important. Okay, don't just find something to go, yeah, this works for us now. It might not work for you in a few years as you continue to mature your organization. So you got to keep the end in mind. Review and select. So the next thing is, once you do that quantitative analysis, right, where the providers, the candidates, fill out that matrix, send it back to you with their proposals. Pick the top 3, maybe the top 4. Just depends. I mean, again, you'll see pretty darn quickly. You have those that bubble up to the top, and you go, hey, everybody else is a distant second. Okay, you can see that these are the ones that match your requirements the best. Do a demo/test fit. And my encouragement to you there is put together a script of what that provider is going to follow. Because what I want to see is my processes in their system, right? Is it 1, 2, clicks? Is it 3, 4, 5, 6 clicks? I got to go here, 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 here. That's not going to work, right? Do not let them drive it, because they're going to show you what they want to show you. And I want to see how my process is, what I need the system to do, how will it work. And from there, you'll be able to quickly discern how user-friendly is it? Is it intuitive? Because that's going to be the thing that makes or breaks you. If it is not user-friendly, your folks will not use it, right? Your customer or your engineers. So you want to make sure you watch for that. My experience has been is that when you get to this demo phase, this is usually where the customers, my customers will look at the different systems and they'll say, hey, these are all great systems, but boy, we really like this one. Because to them, they see the ease of use, maybe even the coloring scheme, some of those things that are more attractive to them that they know will draw in the customer and make it easier to use for their technicians. And don't just look at the web front end, make sure you look at the mobile side of it too. We'll talk about that briefly. Depending on your time crunch in trying to procure and implement a system, I recommend getting a preview of the license agreement. That way, if you got these top 3, start getting your legal to look at them, because that can really bog you down in that procurement cycle, right? If you've got lawyers haggling over things. Let's see, steps in implementation. So overview, data collection, we'll talk about that, configuring, and then we're going to talk about getting training tailored specifically for you and your processes, and then the go live, okay? And just so you guys know, we're here until 9:15, so you guys are hanging in there. Next sessions, I think, start at 9:30. So I'll try to get us through and give you guys a few minutes to ask questions. On the data collection side, first thing is, are you exporting from an existing database? If you are, this is the time to clean it up before you import it. Please make sure you go in and clean up the data before you import it. And this is for asset information, this is for your PM procedures, your schedules, etc. Okay? Other thing I recommend is developing a standard nomenclature. What do you label locations? How do you label your assets? Right? That way, from building to building to building, you're calling system types the same. And I've got a nomenclature that I've been using since my Intel days that most of my clients adopt. And it's intuitive. It's an alphanumeric string where I know where that piece of equipment resides, what type of piece of equipment it is, what it supports, and its unit number. Okay? All things that my technicians, once they figure out the coding, which isn't complicated, once they figure it out, they know what it is that they're using or working on. The next step with that, once you have that standard nomenclature and you work to clean that up in your data that you're scrubbing and that you're getting ready to import, pass that off to your AE firms and put that into your contract docs on any future projects. That way, on your design drawings, construction drawings, your control system, and in your maintenance management system, they're all called the same thing. Wow, what a novel concept, right? So try to get in on the front end of that and incorporate that into your project contract docs. And then transactional records. Those are going to be, this is if you're migrating from an old system to a new system. This is the tricky part. Your work order history. A lot of folks say, well, we want to keep our work orders, want to maintain that history. I don't disagree with you. First question I'll ask, how comprehensive is that work order history? How well have you all been at entering in all your work orders? Well, maybe half of them. Okay. So you just reduced the quality of that data significantly to me. And then, okay, well, what data are you capturing in those work orders? You're capturing costs? No, we haven't done that. You're doing failure codes? No, we haven't done that. Now I'm starting to go, is it worth the investment of the money to migrate really kind of somewhat useful information from one system into the new system? Because more than likely out of your old system, that work order data resides in multiple tables. And then in the new system, it's going to reside in multiple database tables in there. So you've got to do all this mapping. Okay? So can it be done? Absolutely. Everything is possible with time and money. So it's just a matter of is there value in migrating those over. So that's my only little comment there. And then ultimately you do the bulk import. Now this is going to be true for even new construction, right? You got a new project coming on. Get the equipment schedules from your contractors, and actually I would put this into the contract docs, right? Our standard nomenclature, but get that asset location information from them in an Excel format That way I can massage it, put it into the template, because pretty much all CMMSs will have an import template. You put it into that template, and they can upload it. So you get those hundreds of pieces of equipment uploaded just like that, instead of me having to chicken peck enter it through the front end. Okay, so that's for, again, this first-time implementation, migration, but then also when you have new projects. The one-offs, small projects, it's easy enough to enter those in through the front door. Configuring your system, that'll be the next step. And just to let you know, this is the biggest hurdle in any implementation. This takes the longest. Gathering the data, scrubbing the data, getting it ready to be imported. So what I usually do, work with my customers while we're going out there going through the selection process, we're already working on getting our data, cleaning it up, getting it ready so that we can hopefully get to implementation faster. Because this part could take months if you don't have it available. And then the next question is, if you don't have it available, how are you going to get it? Okay, that's where you start leaning on your contractors. Do you have old drawings, electronic drawings? Maybe you talk to your AE firms that did it, get the equipment schedules from them in an Excel format. I mean, a few different ways we can go after that one. Okay, optimize and automate. Again, this is where I want to leverage my CMMS. I want to automate things based off of the service type that the folks put in. I have a hot cold call issue. Okay, well, I'm going to send my building engineer to that versus I have a custodial issue. Well, I'm going to automatically assign that to my custodial staff, right, that's responsible for that building. I want to automate that process. And it also will allow for us to have a quicker response time, increase customer satisfaction, et cetera, okay? Notifications on the service request side. When a customer puts in a service request, they should at least, hey, thank you for submitting your service request. We will review it and get back to you shortly, right? Some sort of verbiage like that, so they know that they've been heard. Then once you assign that to somebody, they should get an automatic email that says, hey, this has been assigned to John. He's going to be there on Wednesday to take care of it, right? That now lets them know that you're going to take care of them. And then when they complete the work order, they should get another automated notification that says, hey, we've completed your service request. Please let us know if it wasn't done to your satisfaction. By the way, would you mind taking our survey? All automated, okay? And that closes that loop for us with the customer. And that's really what they're looking for. Because I can't tell you how many times I hear, I have no idea where my work order's at. I put in this request. I've actually put it in 5 times now because they never hear anything back. Or you think that you fixed it, right? You go in there and you found something that you thought was it, you fixed it, but then come to find out that wasn't really the problem, and now you got the customer really ticked off because they see their service request closed out and you didn't fix it. Okay, it happens. So keeping that feedback loop is really important. Document your processes because then that's going to feed into your training material. And again, most of your CMMSs have pretty good online tutorials, but it tells you how to use their system. Their online tutorials don't tell you how you use their system, if that makes sense. So you've got to have training material that's tailored to your processes of this is how we do service requests. This is how we complete work orders. This is the data we're looking to have you enter. This is how we use the mobile side of it. Okay. The training, again, once you have the training developed, I like giving out the cheat sheets, especially for my technicians and my service request. And we already talked about including that in your onboarding, how to submit a service request. Include that in the onboarding for new employees joining the organization. Let's see, phased implementation. Usually I recommend, because these systems are so powerful, starting off with, maybe it's doing corrective maintenance first. And that's internal. Before, let's get our legs underneath us, get our feet wet, make sure my team's good using the mobile device before I say, okay, let's turn on the service request module, and now I'm letting the customer go in, put in their service request, because if we don't have our feet underneath us, we're going to stumble and fall, and then the customer's going to say, well, that system doesn't work, so I don't want that to happen. And then, while we're getting our feet underneath ourselves, we can get the PM module set up and configured and get those scheduled, so that way, when I go to turn that on, because if I say, okay, we're going to go live and turn everything on, and you've never had a system before, and you're trying to get your engineers to be the ones that are using these mobile devices that some of them might rather throw it at you than use it, might be a problem, because all of a sudden you're going to get this rush of work orders, and I don't want them fumbling over the technology. So again, those are all things to take into consideration as you're looking to do your implementation. And then, phase 2, phase 3 is, okay, we'll get to inventory later, right? We'll add that on later. Maybe we'll add on purchase orders, key management, whatever it is, add on some of those other functionalities down the road once we get the core functionalities going. And then the mobile platform, of course, my recommendation is absolutely to go towards mobile. It's there, barcoding, taking pictures, attaching it to work orders, having information in their hands, being able to dispatch work orders out there on the fly, create work orders on the fly in the field, all just, again, big advantages. The negatives, the challenges with that, because there will be challenges. The cost, I can offset that by increased productivity. I can justify the cost. The ruggedness side of it, that's usually the next question. Well, gosh, these things are expensive. What if they drop them? I mean, most of your folks carry around mobile phones, right? Most of them have smartphones they carry around with them. So if Joe's on his 5th one already, this year, then maybe that's a problem. We might need to get a different case for Joe. But other than that, we should be okay. Chicken pecking. What I don't want is them doing this, right? So I try to incorporate barcodes, drop downs, and the talk to text feature. It's awesome. They get to their notes. I replace the belt. Done. Okay? Simple little things. Start, stop timers just to track their labor hours. If I barcode the parts, I can scan those in too. So all things I can automate so that I'm not doing this, because that's what's going to drive them nuts. And then change management. That's going to be the next big trick. How do I get them to start using it, right? How well will they adopt it? My recommendation is start with your early adopters. Those that are itching to do it, that are more inclined to be successful at it, get them going first. They'll probably have more grace with you as we work out the kinks, get it configured, and then once they start seeing how well it works well for them, the other technicians go, I'm going to try that too. And you'll watch it. You'll have most of them jump on. You'll still have your few outliers, but you know what? I might be okay with that. Their value to me is turning wrenches, not trying to force them to sit down at a computer. Right? So I might have to find a workaround for them for the time being. But when I hire that next round of folks coming in, using technology will be a job requirement. Okay? All right, so quality control, this is on the back side. As you get it set up, you got to make sure you're getting good data in so you get good data out, right? Pretty simple. And then, of course, monitor performance. And I think that's probably all I wanted to cover there. In the interest of time, here's the resources, number of articles. I said I've got this presentation up there. There's actually going to be a couple articles coming out this summer with the BOM, so NFMT's magazine. So watch for those. But if you go to my website, /NFMT19, okay, you can get this information. And if you want, if you're able to scan that from there, that will send you an automated email with the link. Okay? Or you can email directly yourself, presentation@fm360consulting.com, and you'll get an automatic email with that link. And I ain't going to bug you or follow up or anything like that. I'm the only one that gets it, so don't worry, I'm not going to sell it. Okay? Questions. I know we're running at the end of time. Questions, comments, lots of information. Yes, sir? Okay, so question is, are technicians, trades, like at the trade schools and whatnot, getting training on mobile devices? I'm going to say no, based off of what I have seen in my experience, and it's not even getting pushed as much as it should, even on the degreed programs. So that's a weakness that should be bridged, absolutely. Okay, I'll hang around up here for a few more minutes. I know we're at the end of time. I want to make sure you guys can refill your coffees and get to the next session.